What Kant does when he writes general treatises on the philosophy of ethics is he's only telling us what kinds of arguments, moral arguments are. He distinguishes between different kinds of maxims, maxims of prudence, ethical maxims, maxims of technical efficiency, and so on. And what he's trying to get us to understand is that what's at issue when we talk about ethics is, as he puts it himself, a matter of acting always and deciding how to act always in a way that in a way that involves treating yourself as just one fellow citizen with all the other fellow citizens in the commonwealth, when what he calls the commonwealth of ends, that every human being is an end in him or herself, and we have to live together in this kind of moral democracy. This was an idea, incidentally, which he had got from Rousseau, and which he felt very enthusiastic about. He is not, but from time to time, in order to make his point, he stops and he gives an example in what he calls himself a casuistical digression. And if you look at these casuistical digressions, sometimes, the form they take is somewhat embarrassing. I mean, for instance, he explains to us about why infanticide is wrong, and why newborn babies should not be killed. And he feels it necessary in his digression to say, but of course, this argument may not really hold up in the case of illegitimate children, because illegitimate babies have been smuggled into the Commonwealth and therefore have no business there. So perhaps we would have to make an exception in the case of illegitimate babies. I mean, I wouldn't put Kant down in a neonatology ward if he really thought that, if he really had this feeling about illegitimate babies. I'm not quite sure what he would say faced with the complexities of this kind of case. Bentham wouldn't have really known where to begin. I mean, he was a man whose whole life was concerned with constitutions and parliamentary assemblies and how you make a political system work. He would have had to sit for years with the doctors before he felt he understood what was at issue. I mean, these were practical people, largely. Bentham and James Mill and John Stuart Mill, his son. These were people who were caught up in the day-to-day business of politics and who understood that it was one thing to produce general principles. It was another thing to pretend that the general principles entailed answers to particular problems. I mean, the everyday business of working through the tasks which have to be worked through in order to give an answer to some practical political problem. This is quite different from discussing general principles, and the principles are not related to their local temporary applications in the kind of way in which Euclid's axioms are related to, for instance, the Pythagoras' theorem about the squares on the different sides of a right-angled triangle.